And I feel like I need a intro for the live. Yeah, I definitely need an intro for the live. But let's get everything set up. Everything set up. All right, everyone, we are back. We got the playoff bracket set. Everything's good to go. We know who's going to be playing for the shot at the championship, who's in, who's out. Whether you think it should have been Bama, whether you think it should have been SMU, man. Hey, it is what it is. Yeah, pretty much. But the bracket in and of itself is interesting. I think the way it ended up playing out is very, very interesting. I think going in the next year and years beyond, they need to tweak a couple things here and there. But the big thing I'm noticing just off rip is the top teams didn't get the easiest slates, if that makes sense. Now, whether or not you want to say it's because really what it is I think the winning the conference championship and getting a bye holds a little bit too much weight. For instance, I think the 5 seed and I think the 6 seed probably in the best slot. So Penn State, SMU, Texas, Clemson, they're probably in the best shape right now. Now, mind you, those teams either lost their conference championship or had to win to get in. Or in Penn State's case, or or in SMU's case, they lost. But yeah, no, I think they gotta re-look at that. I think it should just be a straight, you win your conference, you get automatic bid, and then from there you just rank the top teams, right? So that way you don't run into a situation where Boise's the what did they rank like ninth or 10th or something like that, end up being the 3 seed. Just a little bit shaky. But either way, that doesn't matter because all that matters now is who you play on the field, who you got in front of you, and balling or getting balled on. So we're gonna look at this. I think first game, Clemson, Texas. That's an interesting one. I think Clemson has the front that can compete with Texas's front, which is the biggest thing in these games. When your front can compete, you have a shot, right? So I think Clemson definitely has a shot. I don't know if I fully trust Cade Klubnik in a big game, but at the same time, I really don't trust Quinn Ewers in a big game. His play at times be a little erratic, be a little shaky. I don't know if he has elite moments, but he also has really, really bad moments too. So it's hard. That's a hard one to pick. That's a hard one to pick. I think I'm gonna go Texas. I just like their receiving core a little bit more, but it's definitely not it's not as gonna be as bad of a game as people think. Like it's not gonna be a blowout. I don't think. Actually, we can look at the preview. Uh oh, all right. So they Texas as an 11-point favorite right now. I think it's gonna. I would take Clemson right there. I would take Clemson. I don't think it's gonna be that bad of a game. Tennessee, Ohio State. This is probably the best matchup we have in the first round. Two like legitimate teams. Ohio State got a lot of pressure on them. Ryan Day losing to Michigan, that was massive for the program. They're gonna need to figure it out because I think Kirk Herbstreit said it on the broadcast. If they get down early, if they don't start out well, they're gonna hear it from those fans who already want Ryan Day out of there. Tennessee, though, their offense, I just don't have a ton of faith in it either. I don't think it'll be a blowout, but I think it'll be another one. Ohio State closely winning that, probably by like 7 points, I think. Now, Penn State, SMU. Now, SMU, if y'all haven't really, if last night was your first time watching them, the first half you were probably like, oh, well, why the fuck is this team even being considered for the playoff? But the second half, that's kind of who they've been. Even then, almost came back, tied it up, gave up a very unfortunate kick return and field goal to lose the game. But SMU, I think they deserve to be in the playoffs. I think it was good that the committee put them in instead of Bama. Penn State, Drew Allar, he's definitely looked better. This is the best he's looked in his college career. He looks good. They got the dynamic 1-2 punch at running back. They got Tyler Warren. This might be dog James Franklin in a big game. I just don't know. I know Penn State's at home. It's going to be a little cold. I like SMU to pull off the upset. I think SMU has that quarterback that pretty dynamic. Running back, what's his name? Jennings. No, Smith. Smith, he was Jennings the quarterback. Smith, he was definitely yeah, he's definitely a dynamic player. I think I feel like it's gonna be one upset in the first round. I think it's gonna be SMU. And then we got Notre Dame, Indiana, two teams from the same state. Notre Dame obviously favored, a little over a touchdown. It's been a good season for Indiana. The team they struggled with, Ohio State, got a good front seven. Notre Dame got an elite defense, like elite defense. We've seen them play Texas A&M, put them in a box. Their only loss to Northern Illinois. It's happened so long ago. They've been playing at an elite level since then. I think, I'm going Notre Dame here. I don't know if that one will be particularly close. I think Notre Dame's defense is going to be able to kind of carry them pretty heavily here. And then let's see, we got Texas, Arizona State. Now, Arizona State, they're on fire. They've been playing way, way, way better. I think Texas, I think the overall talent of the lines especially is going to win out here. I think this is a game that's much closer than people might think. Also, Arizona State having to travel across country to Georgia. That's going to be a little tough for them. I don't know if they're going to have the same home field advantage. I'm going to go Texas there. Then we get the Ohio State-Oregon rematch. Now, Oregon won by 1 point earlier in the year. I think Oregon wins by a lot more. I think Oregon, the way the teams are trending, I think Ohio State's going to be on pins and needles, man. Ryan Day, the way he's coached in big games, I don't think he's going to be able to shake that. Like, you kind of are who you are at a certain point, right? Like, I don't think you just have the ability to, I'm going to shake everything off. I'm going to, call the games aggressively. I'm going to, let my nuts hang. I just think he is who he is. I'm going Dan Lanning in Oregon. I think Oregon's by far the best team in the country this year. Then we get SMU and Boise State. Now, this is an interesting one. Quarterfinal game. Winner goes to the semifinal. I like SMU here. I like SMU. I know Ashton Jeanty, elite player, one of the best in the country. He'd be my pick to win the Heisman. I just think SMU has the better overall team. I think, especially with how their front is, their front seven, one of the strengths of their defense. I think that's what you need to limit Jeanty. I think they have an offense explosive enough to score some points. I don't think Boise State's defense is going to be able to necessarily stop them the way they did UNLV. Go SMU to make it to the semifinals. Then we got Notre Dame, Georgia. This might surprise some of y'all. I think I like Notre Dame in this game. I think Notre Dame, defensively especially, I don't think Notre Dame is that far off from SEC. I think Notre Dame actually is on par with SEC teams as far as their defense goes. Like, their defense matching up with Georgia's offense, I'd like Notre Dame in that. Georgia, their receiving core, don't trust it at all. Carson Beck, I don't know if he's healthy. Even if he is, I don't fully trust him. The big thing is Notre Dame, their offense has to just do something, have a pulse. I think I'm gonna go Notre Dame here. I don't think this is the Georgia team from years past. I don't think the SEC is what they've been. I think Notre Dame's gonna make it to the semis. And then in the semis, we got Texas, Oregon, SMU, Notre Dame. Not expecting that at all. I think it's a byproduct mostly of just how the bracket shaped out. Like, I think if they re-ranked everything, we'd see different teams here, but just some of these matchups, it's how it plays out. I'm going to go Oregon versus Texas. I like Oregon to handle this one. I think Dillon Gabriel, out of all the quarterbacks in the field right now, is the best. Yeah, Dillon Gabriel, I think Dillon Gabriel might be by far the best quarterback. Then you mix it with the team he has behind him, the weapons they got at receiver. I think Oregon, I like them to win this one. I also like Dan Lanning as a coach. I think young guy, but I think he's definitely proven his mettle. Now we got Notre Dame, SMU. And I think Notre Dame, like I said, their defense, I think they're going to have just enough on offense to make it through. And then on defense, their defense is elite. Definitely an elite defense. I'm going to go Notre Dame. And then Oregon, Notre Dame for the Natty. I'm going Oregon. Oregon. They've been my pick. Oregon is who I have thought was going to win the championship probably for the last like 2-3 weeks. Not changing now. Yeah, no, probably a little questionable of a bracket a little bit. I think the SMU Penn State pick a little bit of like. I just feel like there's going to be some type of upset. Like one thing we've seen this year is any team can really lose on any week. Like I don't think there's a team like we've had in years past where they're just have the talent, coaching, just so much superior over everyone. I think it's yeah, I think everyone's susceptible, right? Everyone, we've seen their blemishes throughout the year. I think that I think Penn State is probably out of all the first round matchups, I would say Penn State and Ohio's no. I say Indiana probably has the worst chance. I like Notre Dame the best over Indiana. I think Clemson has then a good shot over Texas. I still like Texas though. Ohio State, Tennessee. If it were flipped, if Tennessee was the home team, I'd probably pick Tennessee. I'm gonna go Ohio State with this one, and then I just like SM. I like SMU's offense, man. I like how dynamic it is. I think if they can limit the Penn State run game, that's huge for them. I think if they can do what they did the second half to Clemson, they have a real shot to win. I know it's gonna be December. Happy Valley gonna be break, but I think they got a shot. I think I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go one upset, man. It's the upset I'm going with. I guess I'm going with an upset here too, but yeah, I think SMU is gonna win that one. And then Notre Dame over Georgia. I just like Notre Dame's. I like their defense, right? And Texas, I think they have a little bit of like a Georgia boogeyman on their back, the same way Georgia has like a Bama boogeyman. So if Notre Dame, if their defense comes to play, like I think they will, and they do kind of what Texas did, hold them to 3 points in the first half, don't really force them to kick field goals. I like Notre Dame to figure that out a way to win. Then Notre Dame over SMU, and then we got Oregon, Notre Dame in the championship. Oregon Ducks, 2025, I guess, national champion. Y'all let me know who you have winning it. Let me know what you think about the picks. Let me know what you thought about who the committee put in the playoff, man, because there's a little bit of debate discussion there, but I definitely think this is how things are gonna play out. All right, let's read chat. What's good, Elf? Nah, this is gonna be a quick one. This was a quick stream. This was literally like to do this right here. This is really to do this right here. Just do the brackets. I'm gonna be on a little bit later. Probably doing NFL reactions, so y'all tap back into that. But chat. So chat on TikTok, they're questioning the SMU over Penn State. I said that it's one of those like you're picking your NC when you're picking the March Madness bracket, you have that one like 12 over 5 seed. I kind of feel like that's how this is. Now, I think SMU, like let's be real here. Penn State, when you look at who they beat, not really impressive. Like resume does not check out. If they had the same resume in the ACC, people would be saying the exact same thing about them or what they're saying about SMU. I just think SMU, I like how dynamic the quarterback is. I don't think Penn State's I don't think Penn State's a world beater this year. I think, like, if we look at Penn State's schedule, all right, West Virginia, Bowling Green, Kent State, Illinois, UCLA, USC, Wisconsin, lost to Ohio State, Washington, Purdue, Minnesota, Maryland, lost to Oregon. They're not really battle tested. Like, they didn't have to play this year. They didn't have to play Oregon in the regular season. Didn't have to play Indiana. Didn't have to play Michigan. Now, Michigan was down this year, but I still think a Michigan-Penn State game would have been very competitive. Yeah, they kind of got a very easy schedule through the Big Ten. Took advantage of it now, beat teams. I also don't think they were world beaters in a lot of games. Like, I was watching the Penn State-Minnesota game. Very easily could have lost that. Penn State-Wisconsin didn't look great in. Could have lost to USC. Even the Illinois game, it wasn't like a blowout. Like, it wasn't, they took really just put belt to ass. I just don't know if I don't really trust Penn State in big games. That's what it really boils down to. Yeah, I'm going SMU there. Going SMU, sticking with that pick. No. SMU, bro, trust me, SMU didn't play much of anyone either. Like, that's what I'm saying. A lot of teams didn't really play. A lot of teams didn't around the country didn't play like that the toughest schedules in their conference. Like Texas, their SEC schedule, cakewalk. Indiana, Big Ten schedule, cakewalk. SMU, ACC schedule, cakewalk. Clemson, ACC schedule, cakewalk. So that's kind of what happens when you decide to put 18, 17, 16 teams in a conference. You're going to get teams that ultimately don't end up playing much of anyone. But, I mean, SMU's one loss before Clemson was BYU early in the season. They didn't have the current quarterback they have now. He wasn't the starter, right? It was just, he kind of got thrown in the game. Had a bunch of turnovers. I think if they play this game again, I would pick SMU to win. But yeah, SMU didn't really play anyone. Penn State didn't really play anyone. Even Notre Dame like really didn't play a whole lot. Like, so I just think there's probably a better way to do the overall bracket. I think I picked a few upsets here and there, but I think like Georgia, this isn't 2021, 2022 Georgia. Like we just saw them 2 games ago go to 8 overtimes with Georgia Tech. We seen them win by 1 point against Kentucky. Georgia is like the G on the helmet, that's still there, but these aren't the same players that they had. And those of y'all that like, if you haven't really watched Notre Dame this year, I promise you, like that defense, this defense is like elite, like very, very elite. I would say, I don't know about best in the country, but like Notre Dame last year, right? This year, Texas A&M, like stuffed them in a closet, not even close. And other than that, didn't really play much of anyone, but did what they needed to do. And I think it's also a byproduct of teams losing around the country, like Bama losing to Oklahoma and who else they lose to? Vanderbilt. You have Ole Miss losing to Kentucky and Florida. Like teams everyone kept losing, so teams that weren't losing, it's like, all right, we just gotta kind of have them here. Oh, this team lost, slide them below, they move up. This team lost, slide them below, they move up. So teams just that weren't losing ended up making the field. Nah, I think Texas's defense is definitely an elite defense too. I think there are a few elite defenses here. I would go Notre Dame, Texas, Ohio State probably have the elite defenses. I think Georgia's defense, bro, like the Georgia Tech game, Georgia Tech has a running quarterback. They were able to run the football. Even UMass was able to run the football on Georgia. I think those things right there, like being able to teams being able to run the ball on you, especially, this late in the season, guys banged up, plus couple that with a elite defense, I think that's a recipe for an upset. And mind you, we don't know if Carson Beck's playing. Like Carson Beck, even if he is playing, he's banged up. Notre Dame has the DBs to be able to go up there, press Georgia's receivers. Like Notre Dame's DBs can line up against Georgia's receivers. I pick Notre Dame's DBs. You can do that. They can load the box up, stop the run. Carson Beck's not even really a rushing threat. So yeah, that's kind of what goes down to that pick. Now, definitely like 7-2. It's definitely upset, but I think Notre Dame has been playing at a high level too. So I think Clemson, it'll be close. I think Clemson's gonna lose though. I have Texas beating them in the first round. Indiana's not winning at all. Boise State's not winning at all either. Yeah, no. Boise State, no. But dog, there's a lot of teams that haven't done anything in big games. Like what's Penn State done in a big game? Nothing. What's Tennessee done in big games? Nothing. Ohio State with Ryan Day hasn't done a ton in big games. Who else? Texas haven't, like, what have they really done in big games? Notre Dame, they don't really show up in big games. So, like, we're missing the teams that the last few years have shown up in big games. Georgia would be that team, but if y'all have watched them on the field this year, they are susceptible to losing. Like, point blank period, susceptible to losing. I mean, if we go to their game against let me get here. Georgia Tech. That was a very losable game. And if we look at how they almost lost that game, which, by the way, there were some god awful calls that they benefited from. But we look at the box score. Georgia Tech, 260 yards rushing, 5.5 yards per carry. Haynes King, 26 of 36, 303, 8.4 yards per completion. They're not Georgia. The defense especially is not what it once was. Like that defense is liable to giving up plays. If we even look at the game yesterday, Quinn Ewers threw for 358 yards. Now, they couldn't really run the ball, so that's a whole different story. But I don't think Texas is really a great running team. I don't think they have great run blocking. Not to mention their left tackle was out. So, Quinn Ewers, 358. Now, he did throw the 2 picks, both of which pretty bad. But it's this Georgia Tech game I'm looking at. Georgia Tech, 260 yards rushing on Georgia. If we even go to UMass, bro. We go to UMass. 226 yards, 5.7 yards a carry. You can run the ball on this Georgia team. Like, they don't have Jordan Davis. They don't have Jalen Carter up front. They don't have Roquan Smith. They don't have Nakobe Dean. You can run the ball on this Georgia team. I think that's ultimately what's going to push Notre Dame over the allow Notre Dame to pull off the upset. Like, we look at Notre Dame. Quarterback is a runner. 2 running backs that are good, like 2 really good running backs. I think that's enough for them to pull off the upset. Now, y'all might not agree, but that's why it's an upset. But just know, like, the path to beating Georgia is definitely there. Notre Dame is a team that can exploit that path. Because the thing about football, it's a matchup. Both football is a matchup sport. Football is a sport based on matchups. Some teams match up better with others. I think Notre Dame, probably out of the teams in the field, match up the best with Georgia. Dog, I mean, Tennessee did beat Bama. Vanderbilt beat Bama. Oklahoma beat Bama. Like, beating Bama wasn't like Bama. Like I said, you have to remove the name from the helmet. Bama isn't who they were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago. Like, this is not the same team at all. Because if we're being real, Bama got very fortunate in that second half of the Georgia game. Like, yes, they won, but they were very fortunate in the second half of that one. And I mean, we've seen Georgia get stuffed in a closet by Ole Miss. Like, Georgia, and high key, if Lagway doesn't go down, I think Georgia could have got upset by Florida. Like, Georgia, like, y'all got to remove the helmets and the bias off the teams, bro. These teams are all very beatable. Any one of these teams is susceptible to a loss, as we've seen throughout the year. Nah, Brock, I got SMU over. I like SMU over Boise. Now, SMU beating Penn State, that's the shaky one. But if SMU beats Penn State, upsets Penn State, which I think they have the ability to, I like them over Boise. But Oregon winning it all, Oregon winning. Oregon is the team I feel the most comfortable about. Offense, defense. I think they had a lot of lapses, especially on 3rd and long last night against Penn State. If they just don't do that, right? If they just 3rd and down, get off the field, figure out a way, I like their chances. I just don't think Ohio State has the their biggest problem is their line's decimated, bro. You lose, like, your offensive line, if it gets decimated, you can't run the football. You're going to have a tough time winning. Oregon, they have the front, I think, to really use their front to those in a similar way to Michigan. Now, I don't think they can replicate it, but they can use the front in a similar way and then just be able to focus a lot more resources towards the pass game, taking away the Ohio State's elite receiving core. I mean, Notre Dame didn't beat Northern Illinois, but if we go by bad losses, like, well, we're not going by bad losses, right? That Northern Illinois game was very long ago. Like, Georgia almost lost to Georgia Tech, almost lost to Kentucky. Who else we got in the field? Ohio State lost to Michigan. Arizona State lost a couple games to unranked teams. Texas hasn't beat anyone. Penn State hasn't beat anyone. Indiana hasn't beat anyone. This isn't like, once you open it up, the field up to 12 teams, you have a lot more teams where it's like, all right, there are a lot more flaws in the field. Like last year, there weren't as many flaws in the field. Why? Because we have 4 teams. With 12 teams, there are going to be a lot more flaws. Oh no, bro, I'm not denying it that it's the worst loss on the list. But if we look at Notre Dame since then, the offense, I mean, they put up 14 points, right? The offense since then been much better, much more efficient. I think they've found their identity in terms of running the ball. But yeah, no, like it's a bad loss. But if Bama had made it to the playoffs, they would have lost to Bama or Vandy and Oklahoma. That would have been a bad loss too, but people still would have put Bama. So just because you have bad losses doesn't necessarily mean you can't win games. I think Notre Dame has like what they're good at is what we've seen have success against Georgia. I think like I wouldn't bet my house on it or anything like that, but I think out of all of the first round games, I think the best upset potential comes from SMU and Penn State. I think Penn State is the team most likely to play in the first round, most likely to play down to their opponent. I think Penn State obviously more talented. I think one, their offense, their quarterback especially, just very, very like on and off. And then SMU, dynamic quarterback, dynamic running back, dynamic receiving core, good front seven. That's all like that. I think that's the recipe to beating Penn State. I don't think you're just going to be able to line up and, try and play bully ball with them this year. I think you need to be able to kind of spread it out, kind of do what Oregon did last night, right? If you can do what Oregon did, hit a bunch of different weapons, target a bunch of different people, you have a chance. I think SMU has the ability to do that. Now, like I said, it's like probably if I had to put confidence on it, I go like 20% confidence SMU wins the game, but I still think we're going to see one upset. It's not so much who Notre Dame's beat, right? It's how they like. I'm not saying like that's what y'all have to understand, right? Football isn't just like a game of this team beat that team, so that team would beat this team. Football is very matchup dependent, very matchup based. Like in my time playing at so Utah State, take it for example, right? We had a front seven, not the biggest, but very fast, very athletic, very good at penetrating. So we're beating teams all year, right? We're on a crazy win streak. We play Wyoming. Wyoming was like 21 personnel, 22 personnel, 23 personnel, run the ball, multiple tight ends. We weren't really built to stop that, right? So we played the game. They whooped our ass. But we made the conference championship. We had to play a team that didn't really do as much of that. We were able to whoop their ass because we could put them in a box. So football is very matchup. Football is just a matchup. It's a matchup sport. I think Notre Dame matches up well with Georgia, especially on defense. I think their defense, especially their DBs, can go toe to toe with Georgia's receivers. I don't have any faith in Georgia's receivers. Like there is not a good receiving core. I just don't think they're that great, right? One of their big problems is catching the ball, which is crazy. But Notre Dame, I like their DBs over Georgia's receivers. I like then Notre Dame being able to commit resources to stop the run. They do that. I think Georgia is going to struggle to score a ton of points. I think it's going to be a relatively low-scoring game. That's kind of the recipe you need for Notre Dame to beat Georgia. I mean, if we look at it, bro, if 2 weeks ago someone said, I'm picking Michigan to beat Ohio State, you would look at them like they were absolutely insane. But Michigan didn't match up the greatest, but the way Ohio State wanted to play that game was they wanted to try and run the ball. Michigan matched up very well for that style of play. Michigan ends up winning the game. So just because the team has certain wins, doesn't have certain wins, you can't just say, they haven't beat anyone, so they're not going to beat this team. Like you have to look at what they do well, who they are as a team, what their identity is, and how it matches up. And like I said just a little while ago, against UMass, Georgia gives up 226 rushing yards. Against Texas, Quinn Ewers, 358 passing yards. Against Georgia Tech, Georgia gives up 303 passing yards, 260 rushing yards, 563 yards of total offense. The Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets put on the Georgia Bulldogs. Notre Dame has a more talented offense than Georgia Tech. So it's not insanity to think Notre Dame, a team that can run the ball well, has a dynamic rushing quarterback, can't do the same thing to Georgia. And if they do that, coupled with their defense, it's going to be a lower scoring game. Lower scoring games usually favor the teams that can run the ball, establish the run. I'd like Notre Dame to do that. That's kind of where that path to victory lies for them. See, y'all say, why do you compare our rivalry to the college football playoff? So Georgia, Georgia Tech, right? A rivalry. If we look at Georgia, UMass didn't have a chance in hell of winning, right? This was a 28-14 game at half. Georgia actually scored some touchdowns like later in the first half to kind of create a little bit more separation. But UMass put up 226 yards of total offense or rushing yards on Georgia. UMass couldn't throw the ball at all, really. I think it was like one or two big plays they had in the past game, but UMass was able to run the ball on Georgia. Notre Dame has almost 1,000-yard rusher. Someone went for 651 yards. They're both rushing at about 7 yards per carry. The quarterback is a runner. They have a good defense. Low scoring games. Team that can run the ball. Team that isn't that great stopping the run. I think that's where it comes in. That's where that comes into play. My fault, Davion. My fault. Now, I was just going on a couple tangents here because people in the chats are going. I got two chats going on right now, but we got TikTok and YouTube. But corner 5, 8th grade. Nah, I mean, stay in the same position, right? You're young. You're 5 foot, 110 pounds. Like, so there's not really much to switch your position to. Just try, hope that you're gonna grow a little bit. Take care of the things you can take care of, like your grades, your work ethic, your effort, getting better at your position, and then it'll, everything else hopefully plays out from there. What's this chat saying? Because y'all are. This one, I ain't gonna lie, this is one of the chats that was moving the fastest out of any of them. But let's see. Bro, I don't think SMU gets rolled. I don't think Penn State is a team that can I don't think Penn State is necessarily gonna roll SMU. I think SMU, I think there's a chance for the upset. I think it's the best chance out of all the first round games. But now they did allow a lot of points to USC. USC was starting a new quarterback, but I mean every team in this bracket has a game where it's like, all right, how the hell did they let that happen? Like, I mean, if we look at let's look at Texas, right? Texas, close win over Vanderbilt, 20-10 over Arkansas, 17-7 over A&M, like 22-19 over Georgia. Mind you, they outgained Georgia significantly. They just couldn't finish. They couldn't execute. They couldn't run the ball either. So I think not being able to run the ball is something that hurts them. But none of these teams in this bracket, bro. If you took Michigan from last year, they're the best team in this bracket by far. If you take Georgia from the year before, best team in the bracket by far. You take the Georgia team from the year before that, best team in the bracket by far. So I think that there's a lot of flawed teams this year. I think that's what kind of NIL did, is it spread a little bit of talent amongst the country. So now you see like SMU, right? Had a guy, one of their best players, transferred over from Miami. Indiana, bunch of guys transferred. Notre Dame, bunch of guys that transferred. So you have a bunch of guys that weren't playing on, were at bigger schools, big recruits, have a lot of natural talent, transfer other places, have a chance to play. Now they're playing. Now you have guys that are similarly talented, kind of spread out across places. I don't think Now, I will say, I think a lot of this is a complete byproduct of how the bracket is designed. I think how I would do it is, so if you're going to go the route where conference champions get the buys, I would reseed after the first round, right? So if I'm Oregon, after the first round's reseeded, if SMU were to win, all right, Oregon's playing SMU. But I think how it should be is they make the playoff, right? So if you win your conference, you automatically qualify, and then after that, they rank the teams from there. So they make the playoff field, then they rank it, kind of like how college basketball does it. Because the bracket is like Oregon has a very Oregon in the 1 seed has probably the second hardest path out of all the other teams, right? Georgia the 2 seed. If you're Georgia, you'd much rather play, even if Penn State were to win, right? You'd much rather play Penn State than Notre Dame, I think. You're Oregon, you're certainly wanting to play anyone else but Ohio State. You're Texas, you're pretty thrilled. All right? We didn't win the SEC, but we get to play against Arizona State. That's what you want. SMU Penn State, right? All right, we win this first round game. Whoever wins that, we play Boise State. Much more favorable than having to play Oregon. Much more favorable than having to play Georgia. So I think they need to relook at how they do the bracket next year. I also think 12 teams. I would have liked 8. I would have liked 8 teams, man. 8 teams, but we have 12 teams, right? We have 12 teams. It is what it is. Nah, bro. Arizona State not winning it. Not winning it. Dog, y'all. I don't know if y'all watch Penn State, bro. They're not that great of a team. Like, receiving core, pretty lackluster. They have two good running backs, good tight end. Drew Allar, he's like hit or miss in game. He's hit or miss in games. Looks like a great quarterback one game, terrible the next. The defense, they're definitely susceptible to giving up plays. I think SMU, I like how dynamic their quarterback is. That's really what it boils down to. I think how dynamic he is, what he's shown throughout the season, I think that's enough to push them over the edge. But yeah, like y'all talking about SMU hasn't beat anyone. Bro, if we look at Penn State's schedule, their claim to fame is what? 14-point win over Illinois earlier in the year. Like, a win over Wisconsin, barely beating USC. They barely beat Minnesota. Like, Penn State's not a world beater of a team. They're very susceptible. And like in any other year, bro, like last year, right? Are you picking this year's Penn State over like last year's Washington, over last year's Texas, over last year's Georgia or Alabama? Hell no, not even close. So there's definitely a good shot. Like they have a chance to lose. Like let's not act like it's out of the question they lose, because they're just not they're not an elite team, right? I think if there was the elite team in the field, in my opinion, is Oregon. Everyone else after that is good or great. So I think good teams can beat great teams. I think good teams will struggle to beat elite teams. I think Oregon is an elite team. I think we're going to see the good teams in the bracket. So say they, like just for shits and giggles, right? Not saying it's going to happen. Say Oregon has to play Arizona State, blowout. Say Oregon has to play SMU, I think blowout. Say Oregon plays Boise State, blowout. Say Oregon played Indiana, blowout. Now you move on to what I'm going to consider a great team for this year. Georgia, Notre Dame, Penn State, Ohio State, Texas, Tennessee. Even Tennessee, I think, is a good team. But those like great teams, I think Oregon has the matchup advantages to beat all those teams too. So I think good to great, you're able to lose. Great to elite, you're able to lose or win, I should say. Good to elite, have a little bit more of a difficulty. But I think SMU is a good team. Penn State can be considered a great team. I think there's a path to loss for Penn State. Y'all keep going back to Notre Dame not beating Georgia. Bro, if y'all watch Georgia play, especially against Georgia Tech, even against UMass the literal week before, they're not a good run defense. Like, teams that can run the ball, especially teams that have a rushing threat at quarterback, they tremendously struggle against them. I think Georgia's offense, one, we don't know what is good with Carson Beck, right? If Carson Beck doesn't play, I don't think Georgia has much of a chance. If Carson Beck, even if he does play, bro, I don't think he's a world beater. Y'all have seen in chat have seen Carson Beck play. Y'all have seen Carson Beck play. He's not a world beater by any stretch of the imagination. Georgia had numerous games this year where they just did not play well, should have lost, could have lost easily, could have lost to Kentucky, could have lost to Georgia Tech. Was not playing well before the Lagway injury against Florida. So for y'all to just say, "Oh, Georgia's a great team, this great team, that," like they're a pretty good team this year. They're one of the better teams in the country. I just don't think there are a lot of great teams in the country. Uh, I'm not saying Notre Dame's good. I'm saying Notre Dame, their matchups are what gives them an advantage over Georgia. Notre Dame can run the ball. They have a dynamic quarterback. They have an elite defense. They have a secondary that can match up with Georgia's receivers. I think that makes it very, very difficult for Georgia on offense, especially. And then defensively, Notre Dame does well what Georgia struggles against. Like, that's the thing. Y'all just looking at the names on it. Like, y'all looking at if it was like we're playing NCAA and, we're just simming the games here. Like, it's not like there's no player overalls. Players actually have to go on the field, make plays. We've seen Georgia not be able to make plays this year. We saw them against Ole Miss, bro. Carson Beck against Ole Miss, that was bad. We've seen Carson Beck against Florida. He threw like 3 interceptions. Florida just couldn't capitalize on it. Hey, y'all keep saying it's bad takes. Just watch. Notre Dame, I like them over Indiana. I think their defense is kind of akin to Ohio State's defense, where they can just kind of put Indiana in a box. Notre Dame versus Georgia, that's probably the most confident upset I have on this bracket. Penn State, SMU, I'm like 51% SMU, 50.5% SMU, 49.5% Penn State. Other than that, though, I like Notre Dame over any of these teams right here, right? I like Notre Dame over SMU, over Boise State, and over Penn State. I think Notre Dame, they match up very well. They have a very, very good defense. They have really good defense. That's really what carries you kind of this time of the year. Now, see, Oregon definitely has an inconsistent defense. I think that's my one holdup with them. That's why even I said if you put this year's Oregon team in last year's playoff bracket against the Michigan, against a Texas, against that Alabama team, against that Washington team, I think Oregon would probably not beat any of them. But football's by years, right? This year is this year. So this year, Oregon, I think all things considered, is the best team, and I don't think it's that close. I think Ohio State, probably in terms of actual talent and like playing to their full potential, is probably second. I just think that there's a little bit of a mental block with Ohio State. I think that and plus coupled with the fact that their O-line is like banged up very badly, like their O-line's in terrible shape right now, absolutely decimated by injuries. That kind of puts them in a position where I think Oregon's able to kind of not run away with that game, but able to win that game. I don't think Georgia's defense is good enough to win it all. I don't think Georgia has this year's Georgia defense is not close to what it was in years past. Like, let's go to like usually we are used to seeing Georgia right up here, like top in the country, right? All right, so this is just points per game. Where's Georgia? Georgia is allowing about 20.5 points per game, right? Not elite by any stretch of the imagination. We go by yards per game. Let's scroll down. We got to scroll down a ways to see Georgia. So I don't think Georgia does not have that defense that they once had, that they had, last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Not the same unit at all. Very susceptible to getting beat by stuff. I think Notre Dame has the actual pieces that can challenge that. I think they can take advantage of what Georgia's not good at. See, y'all saying Notre Dame over Georgia is a bad take. It's definitely an upset, but I think y'all are really just looking at Georgia as, oh, it's Georgia. They're like not gonna lose. Like, this isn't the same Georgia team. Georgia is not an elite team. Georgia is not who they once were. The offense, especially, bro. The offense is very, very hit or miss. I think Notre Dame has a defense to make it a game where they miss, and at that point, Notre Dame doesn't have to do a ton on offense, right? It's not like they need to put up 45 points to win the game. I think this is a game where I think Notre Dame, if they can score like 24 points, I think they have a legitimate chance to win the game with 24 points. No, I definitely think Ohio State can beat a lot of teams in the bracket. I think unfortunately Ohio State has to play Tennessee and then or not unfortunately for Ohio State, very fortunately for me and my hate watch. They have to play Tennessee first round, which is probably one of the tougher first round matchups at any of these teams. But then they have to play Oregon second round. I think if they were the 12 seed and had to play Arizona State second round, I would like them to move on. If they had to play Boise State or SMU second round, I like them to move on. But they get Oregon. I just think the injuries to Ohio's front makes it to where you're going to be able to stop the run with less numbers in the box, and then you're going to be able to devote more resources to the secondary, kind of like what Michigan did. And if you can stop them like that, I don't think Will Howard's good enough to really pick you apart. So yeah, that is kind of, I think Oregon, just by virtue of being healthier, I like them in that matchup. How does Penn State lose? Penn State loses by playing the way they have in a bunch of their games, like the way they played against USC, the way they played against Minnesota, even really the way they played against Illinois. I think if Penn State has one of the games where the offense doesn't look super crisp, where Drew Allar maybe has a few turnovers, where the run game, SMU is able to limit it a little bit, I think SMU has enough players to where they're going to make some plays. They're going to be able to kind of move the ball. And if that happens, I think SMU has a real path to victory. Now, I'm not saying like I'm super confident in this. Like I said before, I'm 50.5% SMU, 49.5% Penn State. But I think the path is there for an SMU victory. I think SMU matches up well, especially defensively, with what Penn State likes to do. They have a good front seven. Very good. If y'all watched the Clemson game last night, like they were good at stopping the run all night. Penn State does not have a super dynamic receiving core. I think if you can stop 44, if you can stop Warren, then you can kind of limit Penn State's offense. So if SMU can hold the run game, just not allow Penn State to run up and down the field, then I think it becomes a very, very even matchup at that point. If you sign to someone with four other people competing for the same spot, you got to work harder than them. You got to outwork them. Like can't run from the grind, man. Uh, y'all saying SMU beating a team that almost beat Oregon is crazy. So if we look at Oregon, right? Oregon almost lost to Boise State. Like Oregon, there was a very, if y'all watch that game, that Oregon Boise State game, there was a very, very, very clear path to Boise State winning that game if a couple things bounced their way. Uh, just because a team almost beat a team doesn't mean anything. Like I've been saying this entire stream, football is a game based on matchups. If you don't match up well with a team, it doesn't matter if you were close against a different team, if you were further away from a different team. You have to match up well, right? That's why I have Notre Dame over Georgia. I think Notre Dame matches up well with Georgia. I think SMU matches up well enough with Penn State to where how dynamic they are on offense can allow them to win that game. I don't think Ohio State matches up well with Oregon with their line being so injured. I don't think Arizona State matches up well at all with Texas. I don't think Clemson matches up the best with Texas either. So I think like Texas, they have the front seven to where I think they'll be able to hold Scatterboo. I think the secondary is going to be able to contain the passing attack. Yeah, I don't think this one's going to be close, right? I mean, special teams for Ohio State is definitely an issue. I think the mental component for Ohio State is an issue, but no, that offensive line is 100% an issue. Let's see what else saying. Nah, Tennessee, bro. Tennessee, their offense is that offense. They're like a year. If I just don't. I've seen like watching Tennessee's games. That offense just not it. Not a championship offense. Like you have to college football. You have to be able to do enough on offense to come away with a win. I don't think Tennessee can. I don't think they have an offense that can really challenge what Ohio State's weak at. Like Tennessee wants to run the ball. I think Ohio State has the front seven to stop the run. They have the guys in the secondary to match up well with Tennessee's pass attack. But y'all keep going back to the dog, the world. So y'all keep asking, in what world does Tennessee or does Notre Dame beat Georgia? It's the world where Georgia gave up 560 yards to Georgia Tech, like 260 yards on the ground. They gave up 220 rush yards to UMass of all teams. You can run the ball on Georgia. Now Texas, I don't think they have a very powerful run game, I should say. Like, I think they're definitely more of an RPO finesse type of team, which I think lends itself well to Georgia matching up with that. Notre Dame is much more of a power running team, much more downhill run. And we've seen Georgia struggle with that. Like, y'all can say Georgia held Texas to like 70 whatever rushing yards. The week before, they didn't do anything close to that with Georgia Tech. The week before that, didn't do anything close to that with UMass. So Georgia, you can play offense against them. This isn't Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith in your front seven, Nakobe Dean. Like, this isn't that team. This team, you can find success against them on offense. Oh, not to mention Carson Beck, bro. If he's hurt, that offense significantly goes down. But Carson Beck is not a world beater. Like, let's go to it's on ESPN. You just go to ESPN and they have like the fantasy CFP bracket challenge. But if we go to this Florida game right here, high key, bro, Georgia gave up 31 to Mississippi State. I didn't even notice that. But and like I said, putting up box against Ole Miss. But we go to this Florida game. So we go to the Florida game, right? Let's go to the scoring summary. So Florida is up 13-6. Early on in the game, Florida has DJ Lagway playing, right? It's only 2 for 6, but 47 yards, passing touchdown. So they were able to move the ball. He's also a rushing threat. Florida's up on Georgia, right? Carson Beck, what'd he do? He threw 3 picks this game. Florida just wasn't able to capitalize on 3 interceptions. Florida didn't have, once they had to put the, I think it's like a walk-on quarterback in, didn't have the players to really match up with Georgia. But even if we go to the game, bro, Florida was in a 2020 game with Georgia without their starting quarterback. Or really without the quarterback that has elevated Florida, made them a very competitive team this year. Georgia, 7 plays, 75 yards. All right, good drive. Florida's defense, kind of shaky though. And then Florida, I think they like threw a pick or it was a fumble, but 2 plays, 7 yards, right? So this was really more of a 7-point game than a 14-point game. One in which it was tied up in the fourth quarter, Florida missing their quarterback. So, like, y'all are just looking at the G on Georgia's helmet. Y'all aren't really looking at who Georgia has been this year up to this point. They have not been the same team they've been the last few years. I don't like, yes, y'all keep bringing up Notre Dame. They have this bad loss. Yes, they have the bad loss, but they're not playing that team. They're playing Georgia. It's a different team, different matchups. Notre Dame matches up very well against this iteration of Georgia. Nah, Ohio State, they're like, it's not a just easy walk in the park type of game. Like, this is essentially a pick 'em in my eyes. I'd probably go Ohio State. I'll go like 60%, Tennessee 40% in terms of my confidence. But no. See, y'all saying Georgia always ends up winning. The former Georgia teams ended up winning. The teams with elite defenses. This Georgia team does not have an elite defense by any stretch of the imagination. It is not the same unit at all. I need to get that out of your heads. They can definitely lose. Georgia can definitely lose. Like, and I think Notre Dame is the matchup that Georgia will struggle with. I think if they had got, Boise State or SMU or one of those teams, it would have been one thing. But I think Notre Dame is able to pull off that upset. See, y'all are saying they're not, what's it called? SMU has a better offense than USC. USC's put up 30 on Penn State. Where's Penn State schedule? Let's see. Like, if y'all watch if y'all watched the Minnesota game, I don't think a lot of y'all did. If you watch the Minnesota game, Minnesota probably played better that game, just didn't have the talent to pull it off. I think SMU is a much, much more dynamic, much more talented team than Minnesota team. It's really about if SMU can hold Penn State below 24, 28 points, I think there's a path to victory. I think there's a path to victory. Now, I'm not saying I'm definitively saying SMU is the better team. I think SMU has a way to win this game. I think Penn State, James Franklin, in big games, he just does things that like he just does things that don't make a ton of sense, can kind of, cost the team. I think SMU, like I said, 50.5% confidence, Penn State 49.5% confidence to win this. But definitely close. Yeah, see, all right, Kelly, that's what I'm happy you're bringing up. So you think Tennessee can beat Ohio State, but it depends on Nico, right? There are a lot of teams in this bracket that I think they could probably beat this team. It depends on what version of the quarterback we get that day. I think Clemson could beat Texas, right? Depends on what version of Cade Klubnik we get. I think Texas could also definitely beat Clemson. Depends on what version of Quinn Ewers we get. If we get the Quinn Ewers that's just throwing in the ball to the other team, Clemson can win that game. If we get the version of Will Howard we saw against Michigan, Tennessee can win. If we get the version of Nico we saw against Georgia that we've seen in a lot of games this year, and if the winning the game falls on his shoulders, I don't think we're gonna see Tennessee win that game either. We see the version of Drew Allar throwing interceptions, not able to kind of get in the rhythm, hit his receivers. The Penn State that isn't getting able to get Tyler Warren the ball, they're susceptible to losing. Indiana, I just think the line is a little bit not good. I just don't think their line's good enough to match up with Notre Dame. If we see the version of Carson Beck we've seen multiple times this year, not just one time. We've seen the bad version of Carson Beck multiple times this year. If that happens, Georgia is as able to lose to anyone in this bracket. Boise State, SMU, I just don't think it's I think SMU is just more dynamic on offense. Oregon, I think Dylan Gabriel's the one quarterback that hasn't shown all right, he's being god awful. Now he has had some games that weren't the greatest. I think he's probably the most consistent one. And then I just don't think Arizona State matches up well in the front seven to really match up. But all right, so let's look at it this way, guys. Let's look at it this way. If we take all the teams in the playoff bracket, right? So who do you think has the best? How would you rank the teams in terms of their quarterbacks, right? Just in terms of their quarterbacks. Because for me, I would probably go Oregon 1. I might be going SMU 2. Who has a better quarterback in this than SMU? Truly has a better quarterback, more dynamic, can make stuff happen. Are we saying Carson Beck? I picked Jennings over Carson Beck. Riley Leonard, don't think he's super dynamic. Think he's, a good player. I think SMU's quarterback's better. Indiana, Curtis Rourke's pretty good. I just think their line's too shaky. Y'all saying Nico, bro? Nico is just very, very up and down. There's a chance we see the Nico that we saw against Georgia that can't really do anything. Nico, the first half of the year, could not complete a downfield pass. Y'all are saying Quinn Ewers? Bro, we've seen Ewers have some really, really bad games. Make some really poor decisions. Not to mention, if you can get a rush on him, that severely limits him. He just doesn't have a ton of athletic upside, a ton of, scrambling ability. But yeah, he's very up and down. Klubnik, very up and down. Will Howard, y'all, someone said in the chat that Will Howard's accurate, needs to scan the field better. Bro, how you read the field is how you read the field at this point in the season. There's no, maybe he can read the field better this game. He is who he is. He's not a bad quarterback, but I think that his lack of being dynamic throwing the ball, coupled with Ohio State O-line being decimated by injuries, I think that just kind of limits their upside. It limits how good you can, or how they can play their game, because now you can focus on their receiving core, like Michigan did, and really hold them. So I think that kind of hurts them. SMU's quarterback. So would y'all take SMU's quarterback or Penn State's quarterback? Just who they are as a player. Who do you think is a better player in college football? Kevin Jennings or Drew Allar? Thank you. SMU's quarterback is better than Penn State's quarterback, right? He's very bro. They're SMU is a very dynamic football team. I don't know if y'all really, really watch them. They just got off to an awful start last night. Like, probably the worst start they've gotten off to. Once they make the switch, bro, like, they are able to score points on people. They're able to move the ball. They have a lot of different weapons, right? It's not like they just really rely on one guy or two guys. Like, they have a lot of different guys who can do stuff with the ball. Like, anytime you see a receiving core where it's just a bunch of guys kind of over that 300-yard mark or around or above the 300-yard mark, like, anyone on them can really, like, they trust anyone to really beat you. They trust anyone to get the ball to. I think that, being able to be dynamic like that, coupled with how the quarterback can play, I think that is kind of what gives SMU the advantage there against Penn State. Oh no, bro, it's definitely. I think sometimes people overrate what the cold weather does. Like, it's not the it's not obviously not the best to play in, but it's a noon game, so it's not gonna be a night game. And then the weather hasn't been that crazy anymore. Like, it's probably gonna be like, I mean, shit. Today it's 51 degrees. I think let's look in Happy Valley. Oh wait, where is Penn State? What's crazy is I played there. I've only known it as Happy Valley. Uh, University Park. That's what it is. All right. Well, this is annoying. All right. University Park, Pennsylvania. Now, thanks. Keep the ad blocker on. We look at the 10-day forecast, right? It'll be like 31, 32 degrees. That's not the greatest, right? Not what you ideally want, but it's not like 31, bro. 31 football weather, like, it's not that bad. Like, once you start getting below 15, maybe 20, like, that's when it's like really cold. 30 degrees. All right, throw the hand warmer on, throw some sleeves on if you need them. Really, throw the tire bomb on the arms. You're good to go. Like, you're good to go. 30 degrees isn't that crazy. If it's not rain, if it's not snowing, then I think they're fine. But also, if it's snowing, I think that limits Penn State because you can really focus on the run game. That makes it that much harder. You force Drew Allar to put the game on his shoulders, beat you. I like that. I like that if you're SMU. No, y'all not hearing what I'm saying. 31 is freezing for like real life, right? Like if you're just regular. 31 is not really freezing for a football game once you're moving around. And so it's gonna be like 10-mile-per-hour winds. Plus you're gonna have the sun out. Yeah, no, it's not, bro. It's not gonna be the worst thing ever. Like, but like I've been saying this entire time. I don't. I'm not saying SMU is gonna blow them out. I'm not saying like I'm betting my house on SMU. I've literally said I have putting 50.5% SMU, 49.5% Penn State. Like, it's a toss up in my eyes. Uh, I think just SMU has the pieces to be able to do that. And I think the other funny thing too is y'all saying SMU is overrated because they haven't beat anyone. Penn State hasn't beat anyone either. Like, Penn State pretty much has the same resume as SMU. They are the Big Ten SMU. Uh, they got the reason they were able to play in the conference championship is because they had a schedule where they didn't have to play Oregon, didn't have to play Indiana, didn't have to play Michigan. So they got very fortunate with the schedule, but their resume is not exactly a world beater's resume. Like, it's not like we've seen Penn State. It's not like we've seen Penn State over the last few years be able to beat like high end teams. Like, Michigan, Ohio State, they've been struggling with them for the last however many years. The only reason they're in the playoff really is because there's 12 teams now. Like, they weren't really a perennial playoff team before this. They were just that team where it's like, oh yeah, they're good against everyone except for the elite teams on their schedule. Now, I'm not saying SMU's an elite team. I think SMU's a good, teetering on great team. We'll call Penn State a, well, let's say this. I think SMU's a B team. I think Penn State's a B plus team. And a B team can beat a B plus team. You just have to, you have to play well that game. I don't think SMU can do what they did in the first half against Clemson. But if, they play how they played in the second half, I like SMU over Penn State. Nah, Bama shouldn't have made it. Texas is definitely the Penn State of the SEC. Like, Texas, another team, their resume does not really stack up. Like, Texas's claim to fame, I guess, is 2 losses to Georgia. Now, the first loss, they got the brakes beat off of them. The second loss, it was Georgia didn't have their quarterback, and Texas still lost the game. But yeah, no, Nico is very, very hit or miss. He's probably teetering closer to miss. But let's go over to Tennessee. We haven't done a deep dive on Tennessee yet. 20 of 33, 167. They just don't really have a downfield passing attack that I feel super, super confident in. Like 2,500 yards in that offense. We've seen Hendon Hooker in this offense. We've seen the offense at its peak. 2,500 yards is not what they want to be going for. He's just not, I don't think they have like receivers where it's like, they're putting fear in people. Like, they don't have a Jalen Hyatt like they had a couple years back. But like, Tennessee struggled with Oklahoma. They struggled with Florida. Beat Bama. Didn't really blow out Kentucky. The Vanderbilt game was probably a little bit closer than the score indicates. So it's not like Tennessee's just been running through everyone either. Like, they're another flawed team, right? These are all a bunch of flawed teams in the 12-team playoff this year. I think it's partially in part due to the fact that there's more parity with the transfer portal. So more guys are going different places, not just staying, we're not just seeing Georgia have every single 5-star and they're just staying there because they have to. It's like, oh no, I'm at Georgia. I'm not playing. I'm behind a couple guys. I'm going to go to SMU. Now I get a chance to play at SMU. I'm able to showcase my skill set. Show I'm a good player. Just, I need a better fit. And now SMU has guys who are like athletically on par with the guys at Georgia. No, that's facts too. Tennessee did lose to Arkansas. Like I said, bro, their offense, Tennessee's offense just, it's not a world beater type offense. But Tennessee does have a good defense, which I think that can, help you a little bit. I just think Ohio State probably has a better defense, and Ohio State has a much more upside in terms of dynamic potential on offense. Like, their running backs are better than Tennessee's running backs, receivers better than Tennessee's receivers. So I think Ohio State, they don't have to, they have a higher ceiling. So if they play their best, Tennessee plays their best, I think Ohio State wins that. But I think Ohio State also has a much easier path to winning if they don't play their best than Tennessee does. But hey, those of y'all on TikTok, can we just like up real quick? Let's get the 5K likes real quick. Just, just a quick little like spree, get the 5K likes. But I didn't realize, I really thought this was gonna be like a 20-minute stream at most. Like, it's been over an hour, so I don't know how I did that. If y'all like these types of things, y'all like these streams, man, definitely we'll be going live much more frequently. Gonna be live tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Got the Dripper Skip on Tuesday nights. Tap into those. But yeah, no, this was definitely, this was a fun exercise, right? I know y'all gonna think that I'm crazy for some of these picks, but I definitely think that I think the matchups kind of played out a certain way. I think, who said it? Aiden, I think Notre Dame has the best defense top to bottom, I'd say I think it's either them or Ohio State. Notre Dame or Ohio State probably is the best defense in my opinion. Uh, I think both teams, though Ohio State especially, I think that their pass defense is a little bit shaky as we saw against Oregon. So I think teams that have a dynamic passing attack have a chance against them. It's just not a lot of teams have a dynamic passing attack and B the trenches to really be able to not let that affect them. So I think if Texas had to play Ohio State, I think Texas, I would like them in that game. But Ohio State would have to get past Oregon for that to happen. I don't think they can get past Oregon. I think Oregon's receiving core is just going to be too dominant for, not dominant, but too good for Ohio State. See, I don't know if you're able to just double cover guys on Oregon. I think Oregon has enough weapons to where you can't just double cover them and like you're not just able to double cover Oregon's receivers. I think they have enough guys to where they present a lot of matchup problems in the pass game, coupled with the fact that they also present a lot of issues in the run game. But yeah, no, I would say Ohio State or Notre Dame probably his best defense. Uh, I like Texas defense too. I say Notre Dame, Ohio State, or Texas. Now I know like Notre Dame gives up a little few more yards per game, but that's not that it's not that egregious. But in terms of scoring, I think they're some of the top scoring team defenses in the country. Uh, I think Notre Dame probably has the best secondary. I would say Notre Dame has the best secondary. Texas has the second best. Ohio State third best. I think Texas probably has the best D line. I think Texas probably has the best D line combined with linebackers, the best front seven. But it's very close overall. I don't think we're going to see a ton of blowouts in this playoff. I think Texas Arizona State is going to be a blowout. I think Notre Dame Indiana might teeter on blowout, but I think those are the only two. I think everything else is going to be a pretty close game. I think I think there's just a lot of parity in the country this year, which is what the transfer portal has done. So, that's definitely a good thing. But hey, that's lit, Cody. That's lit. Yeah, you're a little late to the party, but you still got it, is what matters. I think Boise, Arizona State are probably tied for the weakest teams. The teams I would, if I were, a team playing them, I'd probably be happiest. But I think like there's a path to Boise State winning these games. I don't think Boise State's as far off as you would think for a Mountain West team combined or versus a Big Ten team or a ACC team. See, y'all really haven't watched SMU, bro. SMU, they have an offense that can like put points up. They have an offense that can like really do something. And I think Penn State has just the propensity to play down to their opponent. Like, I'm not saying SMU is a better team than Penn State. I'm saying I think you line Penn State up on a day, they're very variable in how they are gonna play. Right? They can play elite. They can play. Well, I don't think they have an elite potential. Right? I think Penn State can play great. They can play good. They can play all right. They can play bad. Right? I think it's a very, very high chance that we see one of those kind of mid-tier games, especially their first time being in a playoff. You're amped up. Now it's SMU's first time in a playoff too, right? But Penn State definitely has more pressure. They're definitely going to be feeling it more like in a game they should be heavily, or they're going to be favored in. So I just think SMU is going to be able to, kind of take advantage of some of the mistakes Penn State is probably going to make, because Penn State makes a lot of mistakes. I mean, y'all are saying SMU hasn't played anyone. Penn State hasn't beat anyone. Like, we can say a close loss to Ohio State. Cool. They've been losing close games to Ohio State for the last decade. Oregon just didn't really put them away, but Oregon was definitely the better team last night. And Drew Allar, in games against inferior teams, he's kind of been up and down. So if he has a less than ideal game, I think that opens the door for them to be upset. No, that's facts. And low key, USC probably should have won that game. I forgot what they did, but there was like something late in the game that USC they didn't call or something like. Or no, I think USC like called timeout or didn't call timeout or something like that. Gave up like a third and where's the play by play? Uh oh, USC had it tied, bro. USC had it tied driving down. They like let the clock run down. They let the clock run down, bro, from 48 seconds to 14 seconds. They called they ran a play and then they threw an interception. But I remember sitting here, bro, because there was like a minute 27 left. Then they ran a play with 48 seconds left. Then the next play came with 14 seconds left. I'm sitting there like, bro, what the hell are we like? You're at midfield, like do something. Like, why are we just at midfield right here, right now? Like, So I think Penn State could have lost that game. That like 100%. Then USC, I mean, they didn't convert in overtime. Penn State won off a field goal, but yeah, no. Penn State they're not a world beater. Penn State not a world beater. Georgia not a world beater. So I think that's kind of where we're gonna see the two upsets in this bracket. See, if the Penn State that shows up last night shows up, then they have a great chance of winning. I'd probably pick them. The Penn State that showed up last night, though, is not the Penn State we see a lot of the time. A lot of the time, the Penn State we see is the 33-30, probably should have lost if USC didn't fold at the end of the game. It's the 26-25 to Minnesota, where Minnesota just didn't have the athletes, I guess you could say, to really capitalize. Like Max Brosmer, I don't know if y'all watched it. I watched this game. Max Brosmer, he just wasn't able to make some of the throws they needed to win this game. But like Minnesota was definitely just a little bit more talent away from winning that game. But I think Jennings is a top 3 quarterback in this field. Like if you look at all the quarterbacks in this field, I have Jennings in the top 3 of quarterbacks, and I think that makes a big difference. I think teams that have quarterbacks that are good, they can do something. And I think Penn State's like front, especially front 7, is very, very close to Clemson's. Like I think they're pretty comparable. Penn State probably has a little bit more top end talent, but like I don't think I think they're comparable overall. I think SMU was able to handle them, able to run the ball, able to pass protect, able to hold up. On the flip side, SMU was definitely able to stop hold Clemson down, especially once the offense settled down, stop turning the ball over. SMU was able to do some things against Clemson. So I don't like. That's what I'm saying. I think in terms of like pure talent on the teams, Penn State, Clemson aren't that far apart. SMU showed they can be on the field with Clemson. A few less turnovers, a few calls go a certain different way. SMU wins that game. I think the same thing can happen with Penn State. I think SMU is going to see that, or we're going to see that SMU isn't as physically far off from Penn State as some might think. And that's probably going to be the difference in that, or that's like their path to the upset. Now, like I said, I think a lot of people too are seeing SMU as like, oh, they're AAC SMU. Like, no, they're in the ACC now. The players that they were able to bring in because they're in the ACC are going to be a little bit higher caliber. So they're going to have the guys on the lines that can compete with Penn State. And then I think in terms of the athletes, they have good athletes. Yeah, no, Milroe definitely had some bad games. Like Tennessee, the Tennessee game was bad for him. The Oklahoma game was like piss poor for him. But like bro, Alabama was a super flawed team, right? You lose 3 games, 2 of which to 6-6 teams. You're not getting a lot of sympathy from me. Like and everyone's trying to say like strength of schedule this, strength of schedule that. The games Alabama lost were 2 bad teams. Like at a certain point, you're you win the games, you get credit for that. But once you lose the games, like your resume gets brought down a little bit, right? So I think ultimately where the committee ranked SMU was the factor in SMU staying in the field, because they had to play a game. Alabama didn't. Because what's to say? Everyone's like, oh, SMU lost. What's to say if Bama played yesterday that they would have won that game? Like, what's really to say that, right? So if SMU lost and Bama lost, now they're both falling in the rankings. So I think committee made the right choice keeping SMU in the field. Now, Oregon definitely did get a short end of the stick from the committee. Like, they got a much, much tougher path than like the 5 and 6 seeds. But I was saying earlier, I think the committee they need to go back and like redo how they do the like system, like what the format is. I think it should be either re-rank the teams after the first game, or you just do like the teams that win their conference make the playoff, and then after that you do a you rank it from like all the teams that are in the field, right? So we don't have a system where Arizona State's ranked like, 13th or whatever they are and gets the 4th seed. Like, it's based off where you are actually ranked. Yeah, no, when Bama's playing good, they're definitely look like, an elite team in college football. It's just they don't always play good. They've not played good much more this year than they have in, any other year, which is where you see the 3 losses come from. No, I would definitely take Oregon over anyone else at a neutral site this year right now. I think Oregon neutral site is probably they're the favorites. See, Bama played their best in the first half against Georgia. Bro, that second half they played was absolutely abysmal. Like, Georgia was the superior team that second half. Bama's pretty lucky. Like, Georgia just came out so piss poor to start because, like, Bama held on to that game. They held on. Like, it wasn't a definitive victory. We escaped here with a win. But yeah, we're gonna end it there. Appreciate all y'all being here. Appreciate y'all. Oh, y'all got it to 8K. Okay, appreciate y'all for that, man. Appreciate the love. Loki, I might not be on later tonight. This stream ended up being 1 hour and 20, which is significantly longer than I thought. So we're probably just gonna clip a bunch of stuff from here and then move on. But we're gonna be streaming tomorrow night. Probably do NFL type stuff then. We're gonna be streaming Tuesday night. We got the Dripper Skip, so y'all tune into that. But yeah, I appreciate y'all being here. I'm